All right, so in today's video, I'm going to look at two different news articles that just came out. They came out actually on back-to-back days, both in or on marijuanamoment.net. I get a lot of my news stories from there. These two news stories help kind of shed just a little bit more light on how this new administration may approach marijuana reform. So I'm going to actually go in reverse order. The second article that I'm going to talk about actually came out yesterday, and the article that I'm going to talk about right now came out today, and they give us kind of some opposing information. All right, so let's go over them. So the first one is Trump's new White House drug czar called medical marijuana a, quote, fantastic treatment for cancer patients. So that sounds like really, really good news. So let's go down and read some of the articles. So President Donald Trump's choice, who hasn't, again, as of the posting of this video, been confirmed just yet, but she will be. President Donald Trump's choice to serve as the next White House drug czar has called medical marijuana a, quote, again, fantastic treatment option for seriously ill patients, and said she doesn't have a, quote, problem with legalization, even if she might not personally agree with the policy. So basically, she's saying that she has her personal issues with marijuana, but she wouldn't be opposed to the drug being legalized, marijuana being legalized, and in this particular case being legalized specifically for the treatment, for medical treatment of seriously ill patients. And she goes on to mention cancer patients. Let's scroll down here a little bit. This is important to note that, again, under longstanding federal statute, the drug czar is prohibited from endorsing the legalization of Schedule I drugs in the Controlled Substances Act, and this includes marijuana. Marijuana is still a Schedule I substance, so she wouldn't be in charge or have any real say about the rescheduling. She's basically just saying that she doesn't have a problem with it. And again, this is someone that President Trump picked specifically to be the drug czar. Let's go on and quote this here. So right under that, the director shall ensure that no federal funds appropriated to the Office of National Drug Control Policy shall be expended for any study or contract relating to the legalization for a medical use or any other use of a substance listed in Schedule I of Section 812 of this title, and take such actions as necessary to oppose. They must oppose any attempt to legalize the use of a substance in any form that A, is listed as Schedule I, and there's a few drugs listed as Schedule I. Marijuana is still one of those, of Section 812 of this title, and B, has not been approved for medical purposes by the Food and Drug Administration. So she's basically prohibited from using any funding to try to get marijuana used for any medical purpose. So she basically doesn't have any power. She's just giving her opinion, and then we'll go down and actually quote her. And they actually had a follow-up, a little bit of a follow-up about marijuana that was coming out of China, which is just under here, which I won't cover. Maybe just read the article if you want to know more about it, but it's filled with chemicals and all kinds of craziness. And they were talking about that just under here, so that's why the Chinese Xi is on here with a big joint in his mouth. Okay, anyway, so this is the quote directly from her. I don't have any problem if it's legalized and monitored. So she's definitely against marijuana when it is not monitored pretty strictly. I mean, I may have my own issues about how I feel about that, but I do believe that cannabis for medicinal purposes and medical reasons is a fantastic way of handling, especially for people with cancer and other illnesses. So she's talking about serious illnesses and a lot of pain control, I think is what she means. You know of handling the illness and, again, the side effects of the medications for those illnesses. So I'm not saying we got to make it illegal. So she's saying that she would not be opposed if it was to get rescheduled. And again, she doesn't have anything to do with that. It's in the DEA's hands kind of currently. Let's go to the other article because it gives us more information, but kind of the opposite information. This is also marijuanamovement.net. Came out a day prior Trump White House says marijuana decriminalization, quote, opened the door to disorder in Washington, D.C. So this is about Washington, D.C. in particular. Trump did not say anything about marijuana reform. This did not come out of his mouth. What they are talking about is he signed an executive order to try to improve Washington, D.C. specifically, not any other state law, nothing to do with federal law, but in it they stated that marijuana was part of the reason that this disorder, that the door was open for disorder. And I'll just read again just the first 3 paragraphs here of this article. President Donald Trump's White House, they love saying President Donald Trump's White House. He didn't say anything, but again, he is in charge of it, so they're saying President Donald Trump's White House says the move to decriminalize marijuana in Washington, D.C. is an example of a, quote, failed policy that opened the door to disorder. So they're not saying that it should not be legalized. They're saying this decriminalization process, and those are 2 pretty different things. We wouldn't have to decriminalize it if it was just legal and regulated like it would have been if we got to that schedule, if we got to Schedule 3, if it was moved into Schedule 3 and just another prescription drug by the FDA. Anyway, in a fact sheet about an executive order that Trump signed Friday, which is broadly aimed at beautifying the district and making it more safe. It's specifically about Washington, D.C. The White House listed several local policies in the nation's capital that it takes issue with, including cannabis reform. That's despite the president's previously stated support for a state's right to approach marijuana laws. And Trump made a few statements as he was campaigning this previous time to become president, but he hasn't said anything up to this point since he has become president. Nothing that I've heard anyway. Continue to quote it here. DC's failed policies opened the door to disorder and criminals noticed. It says, citing marijuana decriminalization specifically, as well as the district's decision to end pretrial detentions and enforcement practices around rioters as examples of such policies. So this is a little bit opposed to the other article. So are they for it? Are they against it? Again, Trump has come out, again, previous to him being elected this last time. It's hard to keep up with because he was elected and then not elected and then elected again. But he's come out and said he supports state rights, but he also wasn't opposed to the rescheduling process that was going on. To be clear, the first article that I talked about was talking about medical specifically, not talking about complete legalization where it would be recreational. You could just go in and buy it. You would need a doctor's prescription. This was her opinion, the new drug czar's opinion. You would need a prescription, and it would be for these more serious illnesses. Now, will this rescheduling process go forward? The more and more I read things like, especially this article, the more and more I start to think that Donald Trump is just not going to give Biden any wins. If you ever watch any interviews with him, he almost can't go through a full interview without mentioning how badly he feels that Biden messed up during the 4 years that he was president. So at this point, I'm very leery about the rescheduling process that Biden started continuing forward, just because I don't think that they want to give Biden any kind of win. And that would be a big win. That, if he started that that would be a major shift in drug policy if it was moved to Schedule 3. So I still feel like they are moving towards marijuana legalization in some manner, whether that's medical rescheduling, states get to decide, and the federal government is hands off, which is kind of where we are now. The laws just aren't written that way. But I think that the process that was started, that they spent all this time and all this money into and had all these meetings and all of that to reschedule marijuana from 1 to 3, and they were right at the finish line and then backed off. I think that's maybe dead in the water, again, for simple political reasons, just to not give the other side a win. That's just my opinion. All right, I will be back with more news as soon as I find out anything. And until next time, everybody, stay safe.